Ah, so it's that time, isn't it? I've always said that I was never going to become a warframe YouTuber, yet here I am. Although, admittedly, part of that was because of the fact that I don't really have great equipment when it comes to recording stuff like this yet. I can stream it pretty well, but, I don't really like doing that, especially with my echolalia. Well, let's not get into that. Anyway, what you're here for, as the title of the video says, is, some advice when you're first starting out, and that's what I'm here to try to provide. This is by no means a comprehensive list, although I am trying to give as much as I can. And, if you guys think of anything that I may have missed, feel free to put it in the comments. I'm sure other people will appreciate it. But anyways, so when you first start up the game, you're going to have to pick a warframe, of course. I'm sure you've probably gotten past this point, or at the very least up to this point before hitting YouTube to find out where to go. It's ultimately up to a matter of preference, but for the sake of ease of access, I'll describe how each one works for you. But anyway, so obviously you have Excalibur. He's going to be your melee heavy guy. All of his abilities are based around using your melee as well as stuff like that. He does have a pretty decent crowd control though, in the form of his radial blind. So bear that in mind. He's actually a really solid frame. His first ability allows you to lunge at enemies, deal a pretty decent amount of damage to him. If I'm not mistaken, that's based on your melee weapon that you have equipped, so it may suck early game, but it'll get really good late game, if that's the case. Although the beautiful thing about it is something you might not notice unless you read the tips, or just do it by accident one day. His fourth ability, Exalted Blade, will actually work with it. So if it does scale based off of melee weapon, I don't remember because I don't use them all too often. Then that would be what you'd want to do until you get a really good melee weapon. Next up is Volt. He's kind of a bit of a mishmash, but he's pretty solid. His first ability it's kind of eh. His augment makes it decent, though. You'll learn what that is as you get further in. His second ability makes you faster, as well as your allies. You definitely have to build for duration if you want to do that, though. I don't recommend doing that too much. His third ability is he drops a shield and it protects you as well as anything you shoot through it gets stronger. Comes in handy, especially early game when you don't have a lot of mods. And his fourth ability is, does a lot of damage to enemies around him, and on late game it's more of a crowd control than it is a damage dealer. Although I have seen some people do some crazy damage with that, so more power to you. And then last up is Mag. I'll be honest, if I were to start the game over, she's probably who I'd pick. But that's a matter of preference, bear that in mind. Her first ability pulls enemies to you, so you can really easily dispatch them. Her second ability either surrounds enemies with an aura that draws them in, as well as any bullets you shoot into the ball of death just kind of kills them. Or if you hold it, she holds the ball, and any bullets that enemies shoot you get redirected at them when you let go of it. Primarily, I'd use this for the first part of that, but you can use it for the second if you do find it useful. The third one rips shields off of enemies, as well as give you and allies some more. And then her fourth ability just kind of crushes everybody's bones and gives you all a bunch of shields. She's very much so a decent frame to start with if you, have a fear of dying. She's pretty good at keeping shields up. Granted, shields aren't the best in the game, as you'll learn over time, but early game, that's not a bad pick in that department. Alright, so, and then you're going to come up to picking a weapon for your primary. I highly recommend going with the Bratton for your primary. Don't get me wrong, the Paris is alright, the bow is fine, don't get me wrong, but when you're first starting out, you're probably going to want to go with the assault rifle just to get something that does damage consistently and relatively quick. There are some really good bows in this game. Like, there are some ridiculous bows in this game. Matter of fact, one of the most broken weapons in the game right now is a bow called the Noderic. You'll learn about that really fast. If nothing else from trade chat. Everybody's trying to sell ribbons for that thing. After that, the other two weapons, whatever your matter of preference is. If you like the throwing knives, go with the throwing knives. If you want the Lado, go with the Lado. Same thing with the melee weapon. It's a matter of preference. Okay, now once you get done with the starting quest, you get into your orbiter, of course, and you'll have 50 platinum. You'll see that over in the top right if you hit your start menu, or oh god, I don't remember what it is on PC. It's been a while since I played on there. Whatever your pause menu is, we'll go with that, because it'll probably tell you how to do that in the tutorial, I imagine. It's been a while since I've done it. Anyway, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to go into either your market, if you're doing this after the quest, or in your pause menu, in your pause menu inventory, you should be able to do it as well. While you're in the market, you type in weapon slots, and then search. You're going to want to use the 50 platinum on that to give you some more space for your weapons. That's what you're going to want to use that for. Don't worry, you can earn platinum for free in the game later on. You can also buy some if you'd rather not wait. That's up to you. I don't know how much you're planning on spending on this game, because I don't know you, obviously. And we'll go over that later. How to make plat. Because that's going to be further in the game thing anyway. So, the next thing to look at doing is the foundry. You can fast travel to it from your pause menu, I think. No, you can't. I'm stupid. I just checked. I'm actually recording this while on the game so I can kind of visualize where everything is as I'm talking about this. So in the foundry, which is if you go down the ramp, it'll be to your right immediately from your ramp. Actually, you should know where it is, because during the tutorial quest, you actually have to get a thing for it. As I'm sure you guys, or yeah, as I'm sure you've seen. This is where you're going to be crafting a lot of everything, like almost everything. Frames, weapons, random equipment that you use, stuff for your landing craft, even landing crafts once you get further in. Bear that in mind, and it's worth doing. It may take a while, but once you get used to it, it's not that bad. It's worth doing. Also, once you get to towards the end of the game, or I shouldn't say the end because it's still an ongoing thing, you'll have so many resources you won't even know what to do with them. Like, actually, good example right here, because I'm looking right at it. I have 2 million nanospores and nothing to spend it on. So you get to that point once you get far enough in. So don't worry too much about losing resources. You can always get more. Matter of fact, there are a few frames that make that easier for you. Speaking of which, one of the big things I highly recommend, despite what some people will tell you, YouTube and the wiki are your best friend with this game. They don't like to hold your hand. It's kind of, as weird as of a comparison as this is, it's kind of like Elden Ring in that regard. You just got to figure shit out for yourself. And that I say, feel free to look anything up if you have questions. I will say be careful about it so you don't spoil stuff for yourself, because believe it or not, this game does have a story. A pretty dang good one anyway, at that. That's actually what got me into this. So once you hit Mastery Rank... Oh yeah, that's right, I gotta tell you how to do Mastery Rank. Okay, so as you level up your weapons and your frames and your pets, etc., there's a lot of things you can level up in this game, you'll get Mastery Rank points. And as you get them, you'll, as the name suggests, you'll level up your Mastery. Every time you get to the next level, you have to do a little test for it. It's not that hard, don't worry about it. Most of the time. The later ones get really, really freaking difficult. But anyways, you do that, and then you're the next Mastery Rank. It caps out at 30. Well, 32, I guess, technically. There's no real reason to get that high, I'll be honest. They may add a reason as time goes on, but so far, like, I'm Mastery Rank 24 for frame of reference, but so far, the last thing that was important that's kind of happened with Mastery Ranks for me was at 16. And that was the highest level Riven mods, which, again, you'll learn about as time goes on, because there's actually a mission that outright tells you about them. So you'll see them as time goes on. They're actually really nice. Speaking of which, I know that if this video actually goes anywhere, people are going to be disputing this in the comments. Do your best to just stay away from the Riven market when it comes to trading. It's such a racket. Like, I've seen Riven mods go for, like, literally 20,000 platinum, and I'm sitting here like, Jesus Christ, who even has that? So yeah, if you can avoid it, just stay out of it. I will say if you get a Riven mod that's freaking amazing and you don't ever plan on using it, check with any friends that you might play with to see if they need it first. And maybe they can trade you one that you will use. If not, then yeah, I'd say sell it in the sell it in the marketplace, but that's up to you ultimately. I'll be honest, I do that myself. I I don't really like doing it, and I usually try to, you know, lower the price of it, whatever it is. Like, actually, good example. I had a Felix Riven recently, which is a really strong weapon currently. And the Riven mod I had typically goes for about, like, you know, 10K. I sold it off for 6 because I'm trying to, you know, forcefully lower the Riven market because I think it's just a racket, man. Anyways, so back to the mastery rank thing. So you're gonna be doing that. You can also practice the test, so don't, you know, worry about it too much. If you fail the test, you have to wait 24 hours to try it again. So I do highly recommend practicing it at least once or twice to get a feel for it, so you know what you're doing when you go into it. The best part is at the relays, you can fast travel to Cephalon Samaris, and then once you appear there, immediately to your right is the area where the mastery rank tests are for practicing them. And also, once you get to that mastery rank, you can also practice them by hitting your pause menu. And instead of hitting A when it comes up, you can hit X, or I think it's, instead of triangle, it's square on PlayStation, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've done anything with PlayStation. And on mouse and keyboard, you just click on it. So either way, definitely practice those. The other ways you can get mastery rank are by completing the nodes on the star chart. You only get it per, like, your first completion. You don't just, like, constantly get it from doing it. It would be nice if you did, though. That would actually help speed things along. And the junctions give you a huge amount of mastery rank. I don't remember how much the regular missions give you, mainly because it's a negligible amount. I didn't even know that they did until very recently. But the junctions give you 1,000 mastery rank points per, you know, completion, or first completion, I should say. That includes the Steel Path stuff, which you'll learn about later on as well. But the best way to get mastery rank is by leveling up warframes. Unfortunately, that there's a cap to that. Like, there's only so many frames in the game. Granted, that's a lot. There's somewhere between 52 and 104. I don't know the exact numbers because I haven't kept track of that. I have every single frame in the game right now, and even I don't fucking know. Because they do the regular frame and then they have a prime variant, and then there's also, in one case, there's the Umbra variant. But if you're just starting out, I can tell you right now, you're not going to be able to get Excalibur Prime. They kind of locked that behind the Founders Packs, which, fair enough, I guess. But instead, we got Excalibur Umbra, and if you ask me, I honestly like him better than Prime anyway, so whatever, realistically speaking. You get him by doing a quest, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Alright, so once you get to Mastery Rank 2, you're going to want to find yourself a clan. Now, how you do this is you go into the chat menu, which is left trigger on Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch, and go over to the recruiting chat. Oh yeah, and on mouse and keyboard, it's X. You go into the recruiting chat, which is the one with a person inside of a speech bubble. And you go ahead and type in "looking for a clan" and find yourself a good one. You may have to leave a clan and get a different one. Granted, most players on this game, and I feel comfortable saying this, most players in this game are actually quite nice. You do get the occasional asshole, but you're going to get that no matter what game you play. Hell, you get that just by going outside these days. But it's worth getting into a clan. And the reason for that is not only do you have access to people that you can ask, be like, hey, can you help me with this real quick? Granted, in recruitment chat, you can do that as well with the public, but if you get to know the people in your clan, it's better, to be honest. You also get access to a few weapons and frames that you can only get via the dojo. They're completely free. You just get them with credits, or if the dojo hasn't finished the research for them, you just throw some resources into it, and then you get it with credits. It's really not that bad. There's only one thing in the entirety of the dojo that sucks to get, and that's the Hema. Granted, it's not that big of a deal if you can't get the Hema. It's a decent weapon, don't get me wrong, but it's not like, oh my god, I need this gun type good. So, it's whatever in that department. And then once you hit Mastery Rank 3, you're going to want to go ahead and sign yourself up with a syndicate. If you're looking at your nav console, that's directly to your left. It'll have like the different symbols and like, it'll have, parent sequence and Red Veil, New Loka, Arbiters of Hexus, Cephalon Suda, and Steel Meridian. You're going to want to go ahead and pick one of those and sign up with them. And nowadays, it's actually even easier than it used to be. Just by signing up with them, you automatically earn standing with them every day. It's like all you have to do is just play the game. You don't even have to do anything in particular for them. Because you'll just slowly earn standing via the experience that you get. The nice thing is, and the reason why you want to do this, you get access to a bunch of stuff that you can only get through them. Those would be like the augment mods, which change how abilities work. And some of them are really cool, and in some cases they're actually a necessity. Granted, that's kind of a rarity. Most frames you can run without augments just fine, but yeah, there are some ones that you just need them. As well as some parts for arc guns, and you have access to like relic packs and stuff, which whenever a new prime comes out, it's a good way to get a bunch of relics so you can start working on that. Speaking of, the nice thing about this game, you can get everything for free, including the premium currency, and I think it's about time to start looking at doing that, because once you hit Mastery Rank 3, actually I think at 2 you can start trading, but once you hit 3, you can start looking at trading. Now, to earn free plat, what you want to do is you can sell off a bunch of stuff that you either don't need or already have or whatever. So I will say the best way to get started at such a low rank is probably by selling prime junk, which is literally just an aggregate of random prime stuff that you got that you don't need. If you can avoid it, I would say, try to wait to sell certain parts until you already have that item. So like, don't go selling off like Equinox Prime parts until you already have Equinox Prime type of thing, if you can help it. I know that it can be difficult because platinum is such a hot commodity. But if you can help it, just don't. Aside from that, once you get later in, you want to look at doing arcanes. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass to get into because you have to have some starting plat, but once you get into it, it's actually quite lucrative. I highly recommend looking into that, especially because like early on, the arcanes aren't terrible because you can start with stuff like Arcane Strike and all that, and that's only like 600 plat to or you get 600 plat rather. I think it's like 400 to get into it. And then you just keep buying those and selling them. You buy them as rank 1s, or sorry, rank 0s, put them together until you get a rank 5, and then you sell the rank 5. Or if you're patient, you can also just get them by doing Eidolons and do it that way. Once more, when you're even further into the game, there's actually a few that you can sell from a couple syndicates later on. And those you get just by doing stuff like missions for them. Matter of fact, a couple of them are actually pretty pricey. Like Molt Augmented, as of right now, if I'm not mistaken, is still like a 400 plat arcane, and Molt Reconstruct, I believe, is still like somewhere between 400 and 600. Anyways, that's one of the things to look at once you get really, really into that and you get a bunch of plat. Arcane Energize and Arcane Grace are the way to go. Though I've noticed that Arcane Grace is starting to die, so, I mean, hell, by the time I post this, it might not even be worth doing Arcane Grace anymore. But Arcane Energize is still like, 3,000 platinum once you sell it, so that's definitely worth doing still. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere, because I'll be honest, I think DE is too scared to release an Arcane that does anything similar to it. Because the reason why Arcane Grace is dying is because Molt Reconstruct is debatably better than Arcane Grace. I personally think it is. Some people think Grace is better. To each their own. I see why, because they're good for different reasons. Alright, so yeah, with that being said, that's primarily how you make platinum in this game, is by doing stuff like that. Again, it can be tricky to get to the point where you're just flipping arcanes, but once you get there, you're there for a while. And the nice thing is once you get there, you'll start having your own copies of these arcanes as well. And let me tell you, Arcane Energize, oh, that's an amazing arcane to have. Like, it makes the game so much easier for you. It really does. Anyways, one of the things you want to look at doing is clearing the star chart. Partially for MR, and also because there's some stuff in the game that you don't get until after you do that. Namely, Arbitrations and Steel Path. Arbitrations allow you to get some crazy stuff like the galvanized mods, which are just like even stronger versions of some of the mods in the game. There's only a handful of them, to be fair. I think there's 9? I have 6 of them at least, because I have the status ones and the multi-shot ones. I don't really bother with the other ones. I don't remember what the other ones do actually. But they're worth looking at, and you can and also one of the frames, Grendel, is locked behind arbitrations. It's a bit of a pain. I wouldn't recommend doing Grendel farming unless you have like a squad of 4 to go with you. Like, it's just awful. So yeah, you do that, get the star chart done. You also get Steel Path, which is the entire star chart again, but much, much harder. I know that sounds like a miserable thing, but it also kind of teaches you how to get better at the game. As well as the fact that you get some really, really cool stuff for doing it. Namely, arcanes for your primaries and secondaries, which you'll see when you get there. Also, one of the big things I say when it comes to when it comes to this game, it is definitely huge. There's a lot. There is just a lot. That's the only way I can put it. So I mean, it's definitely not for everybody. But if I had any bit of advice when it comes to determining whether you like this game, obviously you're going to have your opinions as you first start, but I do recommend getting to Uranus, as funny as that is to say, and starting to do the story quests from there onward to see how you feel then. Like, give it a second chance then. Mainly because it's a bit slow getting to that point, but once you get to that point, it goes off. Like, there's just so much cool stuff going on. Because you get stuff like Second Dream, you get War Within, The Sacrifice, New War. Also, I do firmly recommend waiting on doing the open worlds, which right now, I don't know if they're planning on adding more, but right now there's only 3 of them. There is Cetus, Fortuna, and Deimos. I recommend staying off of those until you get, through the star chart. Although, technically, Deimos is not the open world. It's the Necrolisk. Everybody just calls it Deimos. Mainly because I think it came out at the same time as the open world, if I'm not mistaken. I know it used to be the Derelict. I was on hiatus when Deimos came out, so I don't know if it came out with it or after or before it rather. I think it was the same time. But yeah, I know everybody associates the Necrolisk with Deimos because of the fact that the reason why the Necrolisk exists is because of Deimos and vice versa. But yeah. Also, one of the things that people seem to forget to do, and is a very common mistake, whenever you, or not whenever, do all of the bosses to get the weapon, or not the weapons, the warframes. Every single boss on the star chart, with the exception of 2 of them that I can remember, those 2 being the Zealoid Prelate, and that would be on Exequa, and Captain Vor on Tolstage, Mercury. Those 2 don't drop warframe parts rather, but all of the other bosses do. All of them. They drop the chassis, the neuroptics, and the systems, and you get the blueprint for them from the market, with the exception of, I think, only 1 right now, that being the Ropalolist. You have to get the blueprint for Wisp from that thing as well. I don't know if it's a him or her, whatever, them. Who the hell knows? It's a giant weird bird creature. You'll see it when you get there. But yeah, that's where you get all of them, or not all of the frames, but that's you get a bunch of frames by doing that. Also, another thing that you should probably do, if you can, level up everything to level 30 before you like cycle it out or whatever. And something else that people tend to try to do, I don't know if it's like a just because they want to collect everything thing, or if it's just they they think they need to type of thing. One of the things I started doing to conserve platinum is whenever a prime frame comes out, I delete the regular version, because all the prime is an upgraded version of the regular frame. There's no reason to have both, to be completely honest. Same with the weapons. There's no reason to have both the regular and the prime, except in extremely rare cases. There have been a couple weapons where rather than being a direct upgrade, they've done something different. Or in some cases, it's both a direct upgrade and it does something different. Good example, actually, for that is the Corinth Prime, which is actually one of my favorite weapons in the game. The regular one is a pretty decent shotgun. I don't remember how big the clip size is, but you individually reload each shell. Takes a minute, does some decent damage. The Prime, you reload it clip style and it has 20 shots in it, and the airburst is a hell of a lot stronger. But yeah, stuff like that. Conserve your slots. Like I said, level everything up to level 30. Also, don't be afraid to branch out and try everything. The main reason why I say that is because there's just so much, especially when it comes to weapons in this game. You never know what the hell your favorite weapon's going to be until you've tried almost all of them. Like, there are a few weapons that I never would have thought I would have liked until I got my hands on them and tried them. Like, actually, a good example here is the Tonkor. Like, conceptually speaking, I never thought I would have liked the Tonkor, because it's, if you've played Call of Duty, it's basically the China Lake from that game. It's a single grenade in the magazine grenade launcher. You fire the grenade, you reload it, repeat. I never would have thought I would have liked it, because this is the same game that has a pirate ship cannon that shoots 5 of them in succession. And the same game that has a bow that shoots nuclear bombs. But, yeah, like, I legit actually like the Tonkor better than those two now. Granted, a lot of that's because of the AoE nerfing and all that mess, but even so, like, looking back at it, I probably would have enjoyed this thing before the AoE nerf more than the other two, because despite the fact that it only has one in the chamber, if you have even one reload mod on it, it's faster than the other ones. And also with the new AoE rework, the fact that it only has one in the clip actually helps it, because of the fact that of the way ammo pickups work now. Because if you have half of your entire ammo pool in your magazine, which is a thing now because of AoE nerf, you're only going to be able to pick up a maximum of half of your ammo at any given time. So you may have like 3 rockets left in your rocket launcher, and you have 20 rockets on storage. You can only pick up, you know, the 20 rockets that are in storage, and you still only have 3 of them in your clip. So you're basically screwing yourself once you eventually reload. So yeah, sometimes only having the one is better. You'll find the way the game works for you. Everybody's a bit different. Now, when it comes to mods, the biggest thing that this game is guilty of, particularly the fan base, is having some sort of elitism complex when it comes to their builds. That's something I will never understand, because that's something I've learned very fast in this game, is everybody works differently. You know, there's no singular, like, god build and nothing else comes close. Like, everybody plays differently. I've noticed that I play very differently than a lot of people. That may be because I'm neurodivergent. As a matter of fact, it probably is. I like a few of the frames that nobody else does, and I can't stand a few of the meta frames, to be honest. That doesn't mean I hate all meta frames either, and it doesn't mean I use all of the weird frames. Like, I do use pretty much every frame in this game. I will say there's only like one frame that I never touch, and that's Banshee. And that's because, in my opinion, I know a lot of people would hate me for saying this, but in my opinion, she's one of the worst frames in the game currently. She used to be a god, but the fact that she can basically trip over a rock and die from it is really holding her back nowadays because of stuff like Steel Path. Especially when things like Nova take a hit better than she does now. And Nova's just goddamn incredible. Anyways, everybody works differently, so the big thing I would recommend when it comes to this is there's a website called Warframe. Take a look at that whenever you have a frame that you're like, I don't even know where to begin on this. And, like, you know, take a look at a few builds, pick one to go with. Start there. Obviously, you're not going to be able to get the whole build on there because, you know, Forma. But start with that and then just kind of modify it until you like how it works. And if you can, you know, modify it until it's perfect for you. That's kind of what I've been doing with the weapons as of late. The frames I kind of have down to a science, at least for me. And that's just mainly because I've Steel Path capable every single frame in the game, with the exception of Hildren, and the only reason I haven't done her is because I just got her recently, and the Prime is coming out in, like, I'd say either 2 months or, actually it might be coming out, like, next month, come to think of it. It's either coming out, like, next month, or it's coming out in the next, like, 5. Because the next 2 Primes are Wisp and Hildren. So it's either Hildren's going to be next, or it's Wisp that's going to be next, and then either way, Hildren is going to be the one after that if Wisp is the next one. So, that being said, there's no real point to me, you know, wasting a bunch of Forma on Hildren when the Prime is right around the corner. It's the only reason I haven't done that one. But I've done literally every other frame in this game, Prime-wise, or Steel Path-wise. Aside from that, like I said, everybody works differently, so if anybody starts, like, you know, if you share your build for whatever reason, if anybody tries to say, hey, that's a shit build, I mean, hear them out in case they have some advice for you, and see if, you know, see if whatever they suggest works better for you, but take it with a grain of salt, especially if they're being a dick about it. But straight up, take it with a grain of salt, you know, give it a try if you can, and if you like it, you like it, and if not, well, their advice wasn't for you. Same goes with weapons, of course, like which weapons to use, as well as, of course, mods to put on them. Granted, I will say weapons are a little bit more straightforward. There's only so many things that you can do with them, damage-wise. There are some outliers, though. Like, there's some weird-ass weapons in this game with how they work. God, I'm trying to think of a good example. I will say the Stalta is one of them. That's actually one of my favorite weapons. Because the Stalta is a machine gun that also has a nuclear bomb for its alternate fire. So you kind of have to build for a rifle as well as an AoE weapon. And it's a little bit different, but for the most part it's the same. So, like, you know, that's kind of something to think about when it comes to that. But like I said, overframe is the way to look and go from there. Also, something I forgot to mention with the trading. There is a website called Warframe Marketplace. It's not the most accurate, granted it's usually pretty close. If you're ever struggling with how to price stuff, because people will gouge you in the market, that's inevitable. They'll either try to, like, you know, get something out of you for stupid cheap, or they'll try to sell you something for stupid expensive. That's gonna happen. So, you know, take a quick look at Warframe Marketplace to get a rough idea of what it's worth. Like I said, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it's usually pretty close. Also, make sure you're looking at the version of it that's for the platform that you play on, because they have the different platforms on different parts of the website. But you want to look at that. Now, for when it comes to figuring out what's coming in the game, once you get far enough in to where you're not really worried about being spoiled stuff, currently I'd say wait until you get past New War, at least. Like, I try to finish all the story if you can. Just all of the main story missions, just to prevent spoilers, because they do talk about it a lot on this. And Deviri Paradox when it comes out, of course, because it's coming out sometime this month. I'm not sure when, but yeah. Check out the dev streams. The DE streams on Twitch, like, I would say once or twice a month when it comes to an actual dev stream. They do have other stuff as well, like, you know, they have Prime Time and a couple other things, I think. I only really watch the dev streams myself. That will give you a good idea of what's coming, what to expect, how the game is going to change, etc., rather than trying to wait for the update and, you know, having to either read all the patch notes or just kind of figure shit out as it happens to you. It's funny how many people, you know, didn't realize that Mag, Excalibur, and Volt had changed in the more recent updates. Granted, most everybody knew, but still, that was funny. Especially with the people who are like, why are you using Mag? It's like, well, first of all, she was actually good before the rework, thank you, but also because she's a god now. But anyways, yeah, that's one of the things to look at. Again, YouTube is your friend, Wiki is your friend. Also, a few things in game that you can... There's a few resources for asking for help and whatnot. And there's... In the chat, there's a question mark. That is the questions chat. And you can post simple questions in there. There's an automated system that'll answer them for you. And if not, there are people that'll be in there to answer them for you, if not. Like other players. Granted, if it's another player, sometimes they are, you know, joking around. Granted, it's never usually anything stupid. I've only ever been trolled in the questions chat like once, and I've been playing this game since like a year after it came out. So, yeah. That'll be fine for you. Another thing to think about as a newer player, there's a guy that comes around to a random relay once every 2 weeks. Usually it's Friday, Saturday, or actually I think it's always Friday and Saturday. And usually leaves Sunday morning. Barrow Katir. You definitely want to check him every time he comes around. You sell Prime stuff to his kiosks for ducats, and you use those ducats to buy stuff from him. And the reason why I want to do that is because he carries some cool stuff. Like, he'll have primed mods, because, yes, that's a thing. He'll have weapon variants. He'll have some cosmetic stuff. He actually has a side quest that you get from him. Sands of Anaros, if I'm not mistaken. As well as a few other things. But it's definitely worth checking him out every week, or every other week, rather. Especially for the Prime mods, because that's another source of platinum for the trade chat once you have them. And also because of the fact that you are definitely going to need those mods for your builds. There's so many of them that there's literally no way you're not going to need them. Not to mention there's some like really basic ones that get primed, like continuity, which is ability duration, and primed flow, which is a max energy. So you're definitely going to want those. The nice thing is they also made that strength of mod more accessible, which I do really appreciate, in the form of the Archon mods. Those are towards the end of the game. I'm not going to tell you from what, because that'd be a spoiler, but they're one of the most recent updates. You can get them relatively easy, and they're the same strength as the Prime mods. Actually, technically a bit stronger, because they all do something in addition to them being the Prime mod. Like, a good example, actually, I'll read off one of them. Mild spoilers, so I guess cover your ears if you don't want to know about this. But anyway, one of them is Archon Stretch. Plus 45% ability range. Abilities that deal electrical damage restore plus 2 energy over 5 seconds. Or energy per second over 5 seconds. That doesn't sound like a lot, but considering the fact that it's the same strength as the... Well, Stretch doesn't have a primed version yet, but considering it's the same strength as the strongest version of that mod, and does something extra, if your frame does electrical damage, that's worth getting. Yeah, it takes an extra forma because the regular version of it's 9 and that one's 16 for capacity. But it is worth picking up. But yeah, no. It's, if nothing else, something to look at. Also, with the lore, you can get, like, a decent chunk just by playing the game now. I would venture to say probably, like, 70% now, thanks to New War. But unfortunately, DE does do the whole Elden Ring thing, and that being you have to like dig for lore for a lot of stuff, which is unfortunate. But overall, it's not terrible. But yeah, I would say the last thing is don't be afraid to look for help when it comes to missions and stuff. I know I've mentioned people being assholes and whatnot, but don't let that deter you from asking, because most of the time it's really pleasant. It's very rare to encounter people that are a-holes in this game. It does happen, of course, but it's not every time. It's not even close. Another thing, or the only thing that I would be wary of with that is a particular part of the game. Again, kind of spoilers. I'm not going to tell you what they are, how you do them, and why you do them, just to avoid too many spoilers, but the Eidolons. You'll probably be hearing a lot about that, especially if you check in recruitment chat. You'll probably be hearing a lot about them, thanks to just how the game works. But yeah, they're a bit of a pain in the ass, and there's like meta builds and stuff for it, of course. But that's the only place that I can encounter, just assholes in general frequently. The unfortunate thing is a lot of why is because I have a very unconventional build. And a lot of people refuse to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, I can do something very different and achieve the same results, and in some cases, better results. So, yeah, be wary of that. That's, like I said, the only place I've ever, like, relatively frequently encountered it. So, yeah. Everywhere else has been a dream. I've had no real issues aside from just random stuff that happens here and there. And again, it's not very often. I would say I've only ever had like 3 major actual problems in this game over my like 8 years playing it. And again, it came down to the person I ran into. It was not the game, it was not, the people that made the game, it was just people being assholes. Again, like over 8 years, that's not bad. I mean, hell, if I were playing like Halo or Call of Duty or whatever, it'd be like 15 a day. Okay, I mean, yeah, that's an exaggeration, but you get what I'm saying anyway. So yeah, no, like that's all the basic stuff. If there's any like major changes in the year, I'll like post a version of this every year. That's actually part of why I'm releasing this like a day after New Year's, maybe 2 days, depends on how well I can edit this today. Like today is New Year's, so I'm not gonna do any crazy edits, of course, because it's me. But yeah. With that being said, have fun. Like I said, just go out there, enjoy the game, and don't be afraid to look for answers. Have a good day.